What's going on, everybody? It is Overreaction Time. Once again, I am your host, Simon Samano, and look who I got with me this week on this edition of ORT, rocking his Toronto Blue Jays cap. Up in the Great White North, it is none other than Mike Bohn. Mike, what's good, man? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. We're taking a bit of a risk here because I know the show won't come out till Tuesday, and who knows when people watch it after that. It could age poorly, but we're hoping not.
Yeah, well, at the time of this recording, the series is tied 1-1 going into Game 3. It's a whole new series, dude, a whole new series. But just know, Mike, I gotta say this quietly because I got a wife downstairs who's a Dodgers fan. I'm on your side, bud. You know I'm on your side.
All right, that makes me feel good.
Solidarity. Let's see how much solidarity we have with these overreactions. Yes. You ready to get this thing going?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, we got a lot to talk about. So, Kamikaze, you know what time it is. Hit it.
I mean, guys, what are you fucking? Is this tonight's stupid question night? Are you guys that fucking stupid? You can't be that fucking stupid. Who gives a shit? One of the dumbest things I've ever read in my life. Fucking common sense. Everybody knows that.
All right, Mike, UFC 321 this past weekend. We got a lot to talk about, but before we get there, this is the part where I talk to the viewers and I let you guys know, please, this is me asking you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It would mean the world to me to get ORT growing. I would really appreciate it. Pretty pleased with the cherry on top, all right? But now let's talk about some fights, Mike. And of course, we're going to hit UFC 321 hard from this past Saturday in Abu Dhabi, and we're going to start right at the very top with an outcome that we didn't see coming because, you can't predict these things, man. They just happen. In the heavyweight title main event, we had Tom Aspinall suffer a really bad eye poke at the hands of Ciryl Gane. And unfortunately, the fight came to an end with 25 seconds left in the first round. If you watched the show last week, I'd said that any outcome other than Tom Aspinall dominating was going to be a disappointment. I didn't think we would end up with this kind of disappointment, Mike. But as I watched the fight unfold, my overreaction to what I saw, Mike, is a little calculated. And I'll say it like this. Ciryl Gane's eye poke probably saved Tom Aspinall from defeat.
I'm going to say an overreaction just because I think it's a little... We didn't have too much to work with there. We had 4 minutes. Ciryl Gane, I think it was one of those things that he was exceeding our expectations, so it looked better than maybe it was. It was very even. I mean, you look at the strikes, 30-27. Gane has the slight edge there. Yes, he bloodied Tom's nose a little bit. So many questions. It was leading to us figuring out the answers to some questions about Tom Aspinall, which would have been very intriguing and exciting and compelling, but we didn't get there. And, Ciryl Gane was the fault of that. He's the one who poked him in the eye. How much of a deteriorated version of Tom would have been after that? I mean, it's so hard to say, right? Like, if the fight kept going the way it did without the eye pokes, maybe Gane was en route to doing something.
All I care about here. That's where
it's a little too what ify for me, right? Because then he goes in there and he does poke him in the eye, and that completely changes everything. And if Tom did continue, that's where it becomes a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, my overreaction here is if the eye poke hadn't happened, because that round's going to end, and I saw enough to be like, whoa, that jab, the jab from Ciryl Gane was super effective in the first round. Mm-hmm. And you saw it on his face. You mentioned on Tom Aspinall's face, he bloodied him up, had him bleeding from the nose. I was just wondering, if we had gotten through that first round, we go into the second round. I think Ciryl Gane's got a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum. Tom Aspinall would be like, what the hell just happened? Now, this is why my overreaction was with a question mark, right? Because I'm not ready to just give up on Tom Aspinall. I think for sure he was going to lose, but it definitely did make me wonder, Mike. And that's all I'm saying. It just made me wonder.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think
maybe Tom Aspinall would have come back in round 2 and blitzed him and took him down, and maybe the fight changes, right? But man, that was a really good Ciryl Gane that we saw in the first round.
Yeah, we did see he stopped the one takedown. He looked very light on his feet. He looked fast, all that stuff. So he was putting together a performance there. It's just so hard to say with heavyweight MMA, right? Like, as you said, maybe it goes to round 2. Tom cracks him with the first punch, and then it's all different there. And then Gane too, he was moving a lot around the octagon. Maybe he tires out in the second round or third round. Can he do that for 25 minutes at that pace? Like that's a big question on his end too. And if Tom Tom did manage to get him down with another takedown later in the fight. That, of course, like could change everything as well. So that 4 minutes made it very interesting to see if the fight had gone on, but not ready to anoint it as like, you know, this was Tom Aspinall getting outclassed, and it would have been a defeat for him for sure. The nose, I feel like maybe we're making out to be worse than it was. We saw him at the hospital on his video blog for all those hours waiting for all these tests. I didn't see any bandages on his nose. I didn't see any indications it was broken, anyone testing it, like things like that. So I assume it was just more superficial damage. But yeah, that too. Maybe Tom, maybe it gets hit more and it does break, and he's breathing out of his mouth, and, you know, he gets super fatigued. So much hanging up in the air. And that's what makes, you know, a rematch interesting in the scenario. And really sucks that we seemingly got robbed of what was going to be one of the more interesting heavyweight title fights in recent memory.
Yeah, 100%, man. And again, listen, there was a question mark overreaction. It was a question mark overreaction for a reason. I'm just wondering about it. So, you know, hey, but we got to run this thing back, it looks like. All right. We definitely got to run this thing back. It's probably what has to happen, and we'll see how it plays out. Now, I want to address something else, Mike. All right. My next overreaction here. And I think you touched on this in your takeaways, and I'm just going to come out and say it with regard to the eye poke. Everyone blaming Tom Aspinall for taking the easy way out, they can right off.
Yes, not an overreaction one bit. The only reason everyone's freaking out is because this is a first-time result in a UFC title fight, right? How many hundreds of UFC title fights have we had over the history of this company? This is the only one that's ended in a no contest in the cage due to an eye poke. Of course, the other one was Daniel Cormier's loss to John Jones being overturned due to a drug test a month or two later. But this could have happened before. Like, even just look back at the heavyweight title fight history. When Daniel Cormier knocked out Stipe in their first fight, it was preceded by a pretty bad eye poke. When Stipe knocked out Daniel Cormier in the third fight, it was preceded by a very bad eye poke, knuckle deep. Daniel Cormier is in there doing his retirement interview, looking like, you know, horrible. It's, dude, like, this is the risk you run. So, and what happened? The guys who got poked in both those fights got knocked out and lost. So to sit here and be like, Tom Aspinall should have just sacked up and gone back in there and fought with one eye, and all this bullshit that we're hearing, that's just so ridiculous. It's insane to me, and it's so unfair to Tom as the person who got fouled, not the one who's doing the fouling. Like, why aren't we sitting here talking about Ciryl Gane's extensive history of dirty practices inside the cage? I just saw like a TikTok or something being like the top 5 dirty Ciryl Gane moments, right? And it's like him punching people in the back of the head. There's other eye pokes. So like, I'm not sitting here, you know, blatantly calling the guy a dirty fighter, but if you can have a little highlight reel of it's like an actual highlight reel of fouls and illegal blows when you've only had 12 UFC fights total, come on. I mean, we're shifting the blame in the wrong direction. Many people are.
Yeah, it just upsets me so much. I don't understand why the emphasis has to be on the victim of the illegal blow in general. And it doesn't matter if we're talking eye poke or kick to the groin or whatever it is, right? An illegal knee. Ironically, you know, the way Aljamain Sterling, I know, who just, you know, a little while ago put something out on his podcast criticizing
and that one was handled the right way.
Guy who's been the victim of an illegal knee and didn't continue, became a champion based on that. You know, like, why do we put the emphasis on the victim of these illegal shots? I don't understand why that culture exists. And for Dana White, let me just say now, just put out there, for Dana White to even just lead the charge in a sense where he's like, only Tom knows if he could have kept fighting. Dude, why do you expect your fighters to keep fighting? Why does he expect his fighters to keep fighting compromised? The quality of your product then suffers as a result of that. Blame Gane, not Aspinall. Final word to you, man.
I think it was also the reaction was a part of just like the product of the entire event. It was a terrible card. There was not many big moments leading up to that, and you finally get to this anticipated heavyweight title fight, and it ends in the most like anticlimactic way possible. I'm sure, you know, the UFC, seeing how much money there is on the line for these events in Abu Dhabi, it doesn't make them happy if they're negotiating future deals, being like, look how horrible this card was. For the first time in 5 years, you're bringing us a headliner that's not Habib Nurmagomedov, that's not Islam Makhachev, that's not Khamzat Chimaev, like a guy who doesn't fit the bill of that area per se. So like, I'm sure they're just all these things compound in there, and you know, in their mind, again, not defending Dana's comments at all, but I'm trying to get into the mind of the MMA fan that probably follows everything he says and has their thoughts curated by what he says, knowingly or unknowingly. It's ridiculous to put the blame on that side of it, but it's all should be, these guys are warriors, they're gladiators. You should be able to fight through everything. And how could you let a little foul like this end your fight if you're supposed to be the baddest man on the planet as the heavyweight champion? But they don't talk about all the nonsense that comes on the back end of this. As I said, in my takeaways column, I don't know Tom Aspinall's contract situation specifically. I haven't read it, but I would assume, like many others, there's different language when you are the champion and when you are not. So what if he goes and continues that fight, gets knocked out by Ciryl Gane? Yes, he would get an immediate rematch, but no, it's not coming with all the perks, all the things that you get as a champion. So just all the stuff that you're risking by going in there, and for what? To fight with one eye, like, come on. If he goes out there and wins, are people going to praise him, being like, Tom Aspinall, so amazing for getting through that first round eye poke and then winning? No, they would probably forget about that part and just focus more on the result.
Yeah, just ridiculous, man. I just hate it. Coming from Anthony Smith after the fight, coming from Chael Sonnen after the fight, coming from
I throw that out of the window a little more because those guys live in hot take culture on the ESPN post fight show, and they're trying to come up with an analysis. They're not there either. They're back in Bristol on the desk. Maybe they didn't get the same vibe some of us the others got, but yeah, that was silly. And for those two to sit up there, and I know Chael has gone on Ariel's show today and kind of clarified or tried to backtrack a little bit, but come on. Yeah. Anyone asserting that Tom Aspinall should have risked it in this scenario is pretty goofy.
Yeah. I'm just calling those guys out, and I get it. They're part of hot take culture, but it just continues to cultivate this culture amongst the MMA fan base that these guys have to fight through these fouls. And you put the blame on the guys who suffer the fouls as opposed to the guys who committed the fouls. Those are the guys that deserve to be criticized. Those are the guys. Stop opening your fingers up. Don't kick to the nuts. Don't elbow to the back of the head. You know the rules. And if you're we just create this culture where everything is, the onus is on the fighter who suffers the foul. It just bothers me to no end. These are professionals. They deserve the benefit of the doubt. I don't care if his eye was 50%, and he could still see partially out of it. He shouldn't have to fight 20 more minutes with a fucked up eye. Plain and simple.
And how did that work out for Kevin Holland a week prior in Vancouver after getting kicked in the balls by Mike Malott, right? Like he wanted to go, everyone's booing, he takes all his time and he goes back in there. He's clearly not the same and he just can't get his game going, whatever, clearly compromised, loses. And then who's sitting here, besides me, I guess right now, bringing that up is like a fight altering moment. But
no one's giving Kevin Holland
the benefit of the doubt. They just say you lost again, and that's a fight that, all due respect to those guys, means infinitely less than what these two had on the line.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's move on from the main event and let's talk about the co-main event. All right. It was a long, winding road for Mackenzie Dern, but at the end, she gets there, right? This was a years-long journey. I think a lot of us when she came into MMA, because she was so highly decorated, we thought she would become a UFC champion probably a few years earlier than she did, but she does it at age 32 after spending, I believe this is her 7th or 8th year in the UFC, Mike. Mm-hmm. She finally wins. She beats Virna Jandiroba in a rematch for the vacant strawweight title, unanimous decision, 48-47, 48-47, 49-46. She was looking like she was wearing some damage on her face afterwards, Mike. And I thought her performance was all right, but as I watched it, Mike, this is what went through my head when we got to the end of it, is that Mackenzie Dern, she won't make it through 2026 as UFC strawweight champion.
Overreaction if Zhang Weili does return to the division, not if she doesn't, because I think that basically
you are allowed to cheat, because that is what my overreaction is kind of based on. So go ahead, Mike.
So yeah, it depends. I mean, even still though, Tatiana Suarez is a very
difficult the other one
for her
Tatiana's
as well.
The other one I would extend it to.
Yeah, she's going to need a performance. I mean, she's obviously going to have to fight. She's not going to go through the whole year without competing. So yeah, these girls, I'm sure, are very motivated and see her as extremely beatable. Maybe, I know it's like a folklore type of, you get what, 20% or 30% better when you become a UFC champion. Like, we'll see about that. But the same problems that have plagued Mackenzie Dern through her whole MMA career were still apparent in this fight. Like she can't control fully where the fight is taking place, whether it's her wanting to take her opponent down and be the one on top, or her stopping people from her taking them down and discouraging them to the point with her submission and grappling threat that like they don't even want to take her down. That's clearly not the case. Verna was the first fight, she was terrified. She wanted no part of the ground with Mackenzie. This one, she was doing her best. And granted, she couldn't get really much going down there in terms of advancing position, ground and pound, submissions. But still, like to think Tatiana Suarez to think, oh, I can take Mackenzie down 3 times and win 3 rounds out of 5. Like that feels very, very achievable for her in that matchup. So yeah, Mackenzie's going to have to be really on top of her stuff if she wants to keep this. The fights are not going to be easy. I don't think she's, significantly worse or like she should be a 3 or 4 to 1 underdog as a champion to any of these people, but she's going to have to put on her best stuff every time out there if she wants to keep this title. She does not feel like she's immediately sliding into the spot to be a dominant champion. And then obviously that all goes to another level with Zhang Weili, because even she admitted pre-fight that she would not be prepared to accept that matchup if Zhang Weili was the champion and they offered that to her. So that's a big red flag.
Yeah, big red flag, huge red flag. And yes, my overreaction here is on the assumption that her first title defense will come against one of those 2 ladies. But if we were to even cast it wider, the rankings now behind her, with Mackenzie Dern becoming champion, she'll move to number 1 in the official UFC rankings, or maybe they'll keep Zhang Weili still as number 1, whatever the case is, right? But like Mackenzie Dern also has losses to Yan Xiaonan, who's in the top 5. She's got a loss to Amanda Lemos. So when you extend it even further, Mike, like, I don't know, if the UFC was trying to protect Mackenzie Dern somehow, who are you putting her up against? You're not going to put her up in an immediate rematch or in a rematch with Lupi Godinez right away, who she's beaten. No. So you can't protect her in that way. Like Tabitha Ricci, is that somebody that they would put her up against? What comes next for Mackenzie Dern? Like, what will the UFC's motivations be? And is there really somebody that she could beat?
I mean, I think
that would make sense as the next booking.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
No, I think just given who's coming off wins and losses and all that stuff and timing, it has to be Tatiana. Like that is the absolute fight that you have to make. And I don't know, like, I think she's the underdog in that, and it's a tough matchup. But like, she's back with Jason Perillo now. She's clearly confident in her game. I think this will do some stuff to her to allow her to evolve, whether it's just mentally or skill set wise. But like, I don't know if UFC is trying to protect anyone in that fight. I think that's almost kind of a win-win. They wanted Tatiana Suarez to be a champion, it's felt like, for a long time too. So either you get Mackenzie Dern, who, we don't need to go into reasons why she's marketable and why they push her, but then you have Tatiana, who has this incredible life story and everything she's been through that is promotable in that sense too, on the women's side of the sport. So I think that is a bit of a win-win. I think that if Tatiana goes in there and dominates her, then that makes the division look worse, given how the fight with her and Zhang Weili went back in February. So I don't know. There's not a perfect answer or scenario for this division. Like if you're the UFC, I think you want to try to keep Mackenzie there as long as possible, though. So we'll see if she can get through. Because if she gets through Tatiana, I feel pretty good about her chances against everyone else. That's just the one that feels really tough.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We seem to be eye to eye on this. We seem to be on the same page here, but we'll see how it plays out. Now let's move on, Mike, to another big fight that was on the card. It was the return of Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar, coming off his loss in the title fight back in January to Merab, he comes back. He beats Mario Bautista. It's a clean sweep, 30-27 across the board. But Mike, this is what I'm going to tell you right now, is that Umar Nurmagomedov, he will not be UFC bantamweight champion as long as Merab is around.
Ooh, that last line is what makes it tricky. I will say overreaction, but so slightly. I do think he can win that rematch and win that fight. It's going to be competitive. I don't think anyone's going out there and winning a 5-0 decision or maybe even finishing each other, but I think he's capable of, again, kind of like I just said in the last one, winning 3 of 5 rounds against Merab and doing, the things he needs to do to win. He's got the experience. He's the most capable of anyone. So, but not him. This division seems grim. If I say not an overreaction, then that doesn't make me feel good about any of the competitiveness of these title fights coming up. So I'll say that just out of hopes that not that Merab can't continue to dominate, but that some of these fights are at least more intriguing.
I mean, I do believe it's Umar or bust, but like in terms of like who's going to beat him, but I don't see Umar doing it. Like, what did you see in this fight against Mario Bautista that led you to believe that another fight, a rematch with Merab, would be different? Anything you saw in this fight and does it warrant the title shot next?
Sure. Well, that'll depend on if Merab wins in December against Jan, of course, and then the pace he wants to keep up, because Ramadan starts to get tricky coming up in late February. If Merab wants to fight in March,
oh my God! If they make Merab fight again 2 months later,
hey, I don't think anyone is making him fight. I think he
no. I know. You're right. My phrasing, rephrase. They're not making him. I'm just saying at some point you got to protect the fighter, but that's neither here nor there.
I totally agree. If I'm Team Merab, I'm saying, buddy, you're out until June, but it seems like he wants to fight in March, and we'll see. I mean, Umar seems very open to it. He said, give me Ayman Zahabi, give me Davidson Figueiredo in January or February. Like, I'm not fighting on Merab's schedule. I'm going to fight on my schedule, and if it aligns, beautiful. Let's do the rematch. But if not, he seems willing to do all the right things, which is what you want to hear. But to go back to your initial question, like, did I see anything dramatically different, being like, oh, like Umar's, boxing combinations were that much better than the Merab fight, or his transitions? Like, no, it seemed like similar guy, but I think he already has the skill set to be very competitive, and it comes down to the cardio and the ability to mix between the grappling and the striking and scrambling. And like, who knows, that fight, the amount of grappling exchanges they got into in fight one, like, as good as it was, fairly mistake-free stuff, and all it takes is someone to, in the words of Michael Chandler, zig when you should have zagged during one of those exchanges, and you get your neck snatched, and that's it. So like, it's a very, very, very high level fight, and either guy can win in that scenario. Maybe Merab's the one who breaks his hand in the second round this time instead of Umar, and that changes the course of the fight. Or someone gets cut and they can't overcome it, or someone gets poked in the eye, God forbid, and that changes the course of the fight. So a million things can happen in there, but I think if you're just if this was a video game and you had to give X points to the grappling and the striking and all that stuff, I think they're as even in all the categories as anyone else. And therefore, I think, Umar can make it competitive, but goddamn, you got to go out there and finish it emphatically or win, 3 rounds very, very convincingly.
Well, I will add an addendum to my overreaction here, Mike. And the addendum is this, okay? If Merab is victorious next month against Petr Yan, which I believe he will be, I'm going to assume you believe so as well. But if he is victorious, not next month, sorry, in December at UFC 323, and the timing works out where they're going to book an Umar rematch before Ramadan, that timing plays into Umar's favor. Right. And Merab would just be crazy enough to fight his 5th title fight in like 14 months or whatever the case is. Okay. That will give me pause, because that's advantage Umar just from a freshness standpoint. I know Merab is a machine, but yes, if he were to fight Umar before Ramadan in a title rematch, that's the one thing that would give me cause for concern. Otherwise, if we're going to take a 6-month break or wait until Ramadan and he's going to be fresh, for this rematch with Umar, I think Merab would handle him. So that's my one caveat.
Yeah, no, that's all fair. And I hope that is the case. Like, I want to see this fight on an even playing field.
If you want to see the rematch, you want to see it even. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't want to come away from that fight thinking, well, what if Merab had waited longer and was fresh?
Sure. Right? I mean, that would probably be the best case for the division, because then you have the biggest bantamweight trilogy since, Faber versus Cruz or something like that. But of course, yeah, those would be all the circumstantial stuff. But no, I want to see this fight with both guys good, because neither of them were in that great of a spot going into the first fight. I mean, Merab, as we saw after, like, sliced his shin open and had some other crazy stuff in camp. And I think Umar was dealing, even coming into the fight, maybe with some hand stuff. So like, that wasn't perfect. That was kind of cobbled together, that title fight, for the timing. Remember, we were all like, wow, like, that's only 3.5 months after Merab even won the title. The UFC is just trying to turn him around so quick so they can get him out of here and move on to the Umar
that was the thought at the time.
Class. And we're like,
how that has changed.
Yeah, this is just who Merab is. He's a psychopath. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they do that quick turnaround in February and he wins anyways.
Yeah, he just might. And he is a psychopath, but we love Merab, the psychopath.
Yes.
All right, man. I want to talk about one more highlight from UFC 321.
There was more.
Oh my goodness, that was the knockout by Quillan Salkilld. oh my God, I can't believe what I saw.
Yeah.
Nasrat Haqparast just looking absolutely dead in the octagon afterwards, dude. And I'll just tell you straight up, Mike, that obviously it's a knockout of the year contender, but that knockout, Salkilld, he delivered the scariest knockout of 2025.
Probably not an overreaction. It's up there. There's been some bad
dude.
ones, like Aaron Pico was pretty messed up from that elbow. I can't sit here and I'm so desensitized to it. I can't like rank how violent they were, but yeah, that was scary, especially the way he fell, the way his head bounced off the canvas, the face down after the fact. It was all
motionless.
Yeah, scary scenes, and when like even the commentators, and you can see the look on Quillen's face. There was some concerning moment there. Thank God he seemingly is okay. I saw him post something, I think last night on his Instagram, just saying like, this is God's plan type of stuff. I'll be back. So it seems like he's taking it well, but yeah, man, awesome. Love to see what Quillan Salkilld is doing. Took this fight on 10 days notice. He is managed by our MMA Junkie kind of colleague, Jasmine Frank, who's taken photos for us many times at the Australia events and things like that. She's kind of moved into the management side, and this is being one of her big guys. She got onto Contender Series and brought up, and then roll the dice against someone like Nasrat, who's been on the cusp of those rankings for a long time now, 5-fight winning streak. Man. And 10 days notice, cut like 27 pounds or something like that over those 10 days, then goes in there and gets an epic head kick highlight. That's something that, one of those knockouts that when you go to an event and they play the Bubba O'Reilly package before the main card,
there like forever
that's got to be in there at some point, because that was one that lives, on the reels for a year to come. So that's the type of stuff you dream of, I'm sure, as a UFC fighter, having that type of highlight featured prelim on a pay-per-view. And thankfully Nasrat is okay, but spectacular stuff.
Yeah, I legitimately thought Nasrat for a moment there could have died from that head kick. I really hope he doesn't suffer.
It's one of those moments you always think, we're so accustomed to these guys being okay. And, thankfully this has been the case throughout the course of UFC history, but it does feel like, one day that's going to be the case. And we all
crossed my mind. You heard it and it hit the temple,
Yeah.
It's different. Like if I think back to like another head kick knockout from this year, which was also was scary looking, which was the Mauricio Ruffy knockout on King Green, right? But when you looked at the replays and stuff, you knew that was like the foot, right? It was like the edge of the foot, and it caught him like on the face. Yeah, he went down face first as well, but he wasn't completely motionless. You heard basically the shin off of Nasrat's temple, and the way he fell and the way he was motionless, that's what really was like, is this it? Is this the moment? Thank goodness it wasn't. I hope Nasrat does not suffer too much long-term damage as a result of that, but those are the types of things that happen in this sport that can take years off your life, man. That was brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Very brutal. We could say it now that he's okay, seemingly. That definitely saved the card, though, because if we didn't get that highlight, this would have been rough sledding.
It was rough. All right, man. All right, let's move away from UFC 321, Mike. I want to talk about one more thing, all right? And that is we are just a couple of months away from January, which means at the turn of the year, we're moving into the Paramount era, right? And there's been a lot of talk. I know Dana recently mentioned that they've already started planning for the first Paramount event that's going to happen in January. There's rumblings that it might be in Los Angeles. These are just things that we're hearing. Nothing is confirmed. And one of the things that has come up is that it's a possibility, and I think probably more like a likelihood, that Ilia Topuria is going to headline that event in January. And I'm just going to tell you this straight up right now, Mike, that Ilia Topuria versus Paddy Pimblett is the fight to make, and it should headline the UFC's first numbered event on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, not an overreaction, and I know you love to hear this because this is kind of bringing all your Paddy Pimblett prognostications to life. So I know you're very happy about this, and you hope that's the way it goes. And yeah, I mean, all the circumstances just make too much sense. Arman is fighting Dan Hooker in Qatar. I don't think it would make sense to turn him around that quickly for January. Like, hey, buddy, come back to the scene of the crime and fight for the title again in LA after all that happened. Like, maybe just give more a proper channel to do that. And then Justin Gaethje, like, I would be fine if they did Justin Gaethje. I'm not going to sit here and cry. I've literally said this from I think spinning back click the day after UFC 317 when Topuria beat Charles Oliveira. I said, you got 3 options here. If you want the best MMA fight, the most competitive, most high level, you do Topuria and Arman Tsarukyan. If you want to get Ilia Topuria, like a highlight, add another legend's name to his resume. You might not get another chance with Justin Gaethje. Like, keep the run going, beat all these guys with big names in a row. But if you want the one that's going to have the most beef, the most storyline, potentially be the most intriguing fights in the way. Yeah, I mean, we don't know if it's going to be competitive, but I think at least intriguing. Like, I want to see what Paddy Pimblett can do. Maybe he isn't that good that, like, you know, these have been some nicely timed wins over Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler on the back ends of their career. Like, this happens sometimes. Then he goes in there and gets exposed and all the way that people have said he sucks. But at least he's going to go in there very confident. He's been studying Ilia Topuria for years. He claims he knows exactly how to beat the guy. So all these things I just make into a sellable fight. Paramount, all this stuff. Like, I could go on and on. You all know this. So yeah, it's right there, and it just makes sense. I know some people don't like it. Like, Dustin Poirier has told me he wants to see Paddy win a top 5 fight, earn it a little bit more, but this is the way it goes. Not all title shots. But it's the way
that the UFC has mapped out this division. All you know, you've got Arman fighting Dan Hooker. You've got Oliveira and Max Holloway, who are not really in a position to call for a rematch with Topuria, and they are talking about fighting each other, right? So that doesn't make sense. So then what you're talking about after that is just Gaethje, and I don't think Gaethje is deserving. I get it, he's a long tenured guy, but I've said on the show repeatedly, I just don't think, given what he's done lately, that he deserves a 4th. Am I wrong, Mike? This would be a 4th undisputed title shot for Gaethje, or a 3rd?
I think 3rd, because he had he had Habib, and then who was the other one? Let me see here. Oliveira. And yeah, that was it.
He fought Tony Ferguson for the interim.
That was interim, yeah.
He won that one.
Yeah, so he's 0-2. And yeah, I mean, I get it.
It's 3rd. I just don't think I like a 3rd for him. And then what would you do? Like, what would you do with Paddy? You're going to put Paddy in a position where he has to fight somebody. Like you suggested, you know, Poirier wants to see him fight, but why? He's number 6. Well, yeah, he's already there, right? Like, he's right there on the cusp. You've mapped out the division the way it is. For fuck's sake, you gave Sean O'Malley a title shot after he jumped a whole bunch of spots when he controversially defeated Petr Yan. The UFC's done worse, right? You know, so yes, this is Paddy's title shot, dude. Like, this is his shot. He's done enough to warrant it. And the timing makes sense. And let's just hit the aspect of this has to be big, because Dana always promises big things. Is there a main event that, timing-wise right now, that you can think of, Mike, that would even touch the level of being that big that the UFC could make? Is there another champions fight? What would you get? Hamzat, if you're going to book him in January, against Nasruddin Imavov, perhaps? What would the other options be?
I'm sure Alex Pereira
would ran back the heavyweight title main event. You know, I'm sure Alex Pereira versus Carlos Ulberg. But none of those fights that I mentioned, I don't think they even come close to the intrigue and big fight feels. I don't think they're right. I don't think they're as close as the big fight feels as Paddy versus Ilia.
No objections to that. I think this is clearly the way to go. I mean, if Ilya's not headlining this card, why did we just have him fight once in 2025, right? Like, there's clearly got to be a reason for this inactivity this year. So it makes too much sense. No real counterpoints. I mean, again, as I said, if they did Justin Gaethje, I would be fine with it. Like, they gave Dustin Poirier the title shot against Islam when, like, you know, there's not too many guys screaming out there that made like more sense. It was more a timing based and situation based title shot. These things happen sometimes. If UFC said we need to see something more out of Paddy, or if Paddy is being difficult in negotiations, asking them for what they consider too much or things like that, I'm sure they will pick up the phone and call Justin Gaethje. So the circumstances seem right for Paddy to get it. It's just, can they come to terms, and will they actually offer it to him? I think they will, and I think that's the fight we're going to get. And as you said there, if it's not Paddy, what else do they do with him? And if you put him against another top 5 guy and he loses, then what?
Right,
you lose this fight.
You risk it. You risk right now. His stock is at an all-time high. You risk it. It's a great matchup. I can't wait to see it. I'm going to just throw that out there now. It's going to happen in January in LA.
You're pretty close to on point there. I think you should feel good about that.
All right,
in the backyard.
I love to hear it. Maybe you have some inside information. I love to hear it, Mike. I love to hear it, man. All right, Mikey. Well, the time for overreacting has come to an end. Would you like to provide an overreaction or anything about your state before we sign off with the Blue Jays in the World Series against the Dodgers? How we feeling, man? We feeling good? Again, at the time of this recording, it's a 1-1 series.
Yeah.
What are you feeling right now?
My overreaction on behalf of LA is, I guess you guys better win these next 3 games, because apparently the true overreactions came when they tried to get back into the U.S. through customs, even though it was U.S. customs, not Canadian customs when you leave the country. So I don't know what that was all about, but yeah, you got to win these next 3, because I don't think they want to make it back here to Toronto.
Just nonsense, man. Just nonsense. But all right, man. Well, good luck to the Blue Jays in the World Series. You know I'm pulling for you. I'm a big Dodgers hater as a Giants fan. So let's go America's team, the Toronto Blue Jays, baby. But hey, I appreciate everybody for tuning in this week. Please, once again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you guys. And we will see you on the next edition of ORT. Dana, please take it away, my man.
MMA Junkie AI.